I toured the Wyoming State Capitol, and in this video, I'm going to give you a personal walkthrough of my trip there while showing you the inside of the Capitol. After my last few Capitol building visits, I picked Wyoming and Colorado's capitals as my next goal. I picked Colorado because, conveniently, one of my best friends was flying into Denver from Michigan for work, and I thought having an evening meal with him would be an added bonus. Once I knew Denver was my next choice, I searched Google Maps to see which other capitals I could visit while in Denver. It turned out that Cheyenne, Wyoming was only about 100 miles north of Denver, which was only about an hour and a half drive. So that's why Wyoming and Colorado became my next targets. I booked the flight to Denver and booked a rental car for my drive around the area. During my 3-day trip, I drove from Denver, Colorado to Cheyenne, Wyoming, then to Boulder, Colorado, and back to Denver. Cheyenne is the state capital and largest city of Wyoming with an estimate of only 65,000 people. That's really tiny, and it's like one small part of just one neighborhood in the city of Atlanta. At 65,000, Cheyenne is 5 times smaller than Atlanta, Georgia's population. The drive north on I-25 from Denver, Colorado to Cheyenne, Wyoming was super flat, meaning if you're an adventurous person who enjoys bicycling, you'll have no problem riding on this stretch of road if it were allowed. I was expecting to drive through a bunch of mountains. I can see plenty of mountains in the distant skyline, but didn't end up driving in between any of them. The drive reminded me of my drive from Reno to Carson City, Nevada, with the exception of the terrain. This terrain was much flatter than Nevada though. After about an hour and a half, I made it to the True Hilton Hotel in Cheyenne. I then drove to the local Walmart to pick up some groceries. There wasn't much traffic on the roads at all, which I suppose is expected for a city of such a small size. Afterwards, I made it back to my room, cooked my dinner, and went to bed. When I woke up around 5:30 a.m., there was about an inch of snow on the road. The snow was just flurries in the beginning, but eventually started to come down much harder. By the time 8:30 a.m. came, I was sure I'd be stuck in Cheyenne if it didn't stop snowing. The hotel worker at the front desk had told me that the interstate was shut down because of the snow. Luckily, the snow let up a few hours later. The snow plows got to work and most roads were cleared by mid-morning. I drove to the local Planet Fitness for my Monday workout, and afterwards I went back to the hotel, checked out, and made my way to the Wyoming State Capitol. The original building was built in 1888, expanded twice in 1890 and 1917, but recently had its first comprehensive restoration in its 130-year history. This means it was quite a pleasure seeing the newest changes come to light. The Capitol technically has 4 floors you can visit, including its ground or garden level entrance. Upon arriving at Wyoming State Capitol, I parked directly across from the front of the building. Luckily, parking was free the first 2 hours. I then immediately took my customary exterior selfie. After walking the grounds outside the building a bit, I made my way inside. Once I entered the building, I was greeted by a volunteer who worked at the information desk. She gave me a quick summary of the building and immediately taught me something about Wyoming I didn't know. She taught me how Wyoming was the first state to recognize women's right to vote. Wyoming recognized women's right to vote 50 years before the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which federally gave women the right to vote. She also told me how the floors in the cherry oak and walnut hardwoods are still the originals. She then pointed me to the first floor public meeting room, which was set up to show a PBS Wyoming State Capitol building tour presentation. But before I made my way towards the meeting room, I took a few minutes to marvel at the grand entrance of the Capitol, including its rotunda. The painting in the rotunda was restored to match the painting from the original construction, and on the 3rd level of the rotunda are the 4 sisters that I'll talk about a bit more later. After admiring the entrance, I made it to the presentation. The presentation was mainly about the 4-year major renovation the building recently completed. Then, after looking through the self-guided brochure, I realized that it too was essentially set up to talk about the renovation. This is opposed to other self-guided brochures I've read so far. Previous brochures I've read were essentially just building floor plans that helped me locate different areas of the Capitol and add a bit of history about the building. I guess Wyoming really wants everyone to know why they spent $300 million to renovate the building. Speaking of, I kind of felt lucky that I started my Capitol Hunt challenge this year. A year earlier, I would have missed the opportunity to tour inside the building since they were closed for 4 years for the renovation. Anyway, after watching the presentation, I continued on the first floor with my walking self-guided tour. The Capitol Information Office is located on this floor at the entrance of the building, as well as the other key government official offices. This includes the governor's office and his ceremonial suite where bills are signed. In the hall area, before getting into the governor's suite, you'll find portraits of previous Wyoming governors hanging on the walls. After I walked the first floor, I made my way up the staircase to the second floor. If you look really carefully, the beam that is second before the last beam on the left side of the staircase is supposedly an Easter egg, meaning one of the renovators purposely installed it upside down because he wanted people to know nothing in life is perfect except God. Oh, and that huge digital display with the words welcome showing is probably the real reason why the paper self-guided brochures aren't really maps. That digital display is one of those touchscreen displays that serves as the Capitol's map. Pretty sweet install, included in the $300 million renovation if you ask me. Oh, and the building has Wi-Fi for guests. Anyway, as you keep walking up the stairs on the second floor, you reach the House chamber at the end of the hall. Before getting there, you'll pass the hallway that's flanked with pictures of past legislatures. Turning around and walking to the opposite side of the building, next up, I passed what's supposed to be the Territorial Council Chamber according to the self-guided brochure. Apparently, it's now the Legislative Service Office. Oh well. Then, before I walked towards the Senate chamber, I peeked into the historic Supreme Court Territorial House Chamber. According to the information desk, it's the most historic room in the Capitol. It's the room where the deliberations that ultimately allow women in the state of Wyoming to vote took place. Then I passed another large digital map before making my way into the Senate chambers. They too have their walls flanked with portraits of previous legislatures. The third floor is basically a repeat of the second floor, just at the gallery level. The exception is you will find the Joint Appropriations Committee meeting room. All other rooms are just the galleries of the chambers on the second level. In the galleries for both the House and the Senate, you can get a better view of their remarkable skylights on the ceiling and their beautiful chandeliers. Last that I'll make mention of on this floor are the Four Sisters located right under the rotunda. The Four Sisters represent key values and attributes of Wyoming and its citizens. The older sister, Truth, leads the way, illuminating the path for Wyoming's pioneers. Next, Justice sets the course for Wyomingites to live freely and peacefully. Courage allows the Wyomingites to carry on, encouraging and supporting them through hard times. And the youngest sister, Hope, inspires them to continue striving for the future to build the Wyoming they aspire for. Pretty aspirational, don't you think? Now, for some reason, I don't have video of what I thought was the most impressive room in the Capitol. The Capitol has an underground connection to another state building, and this connection is dubbed the Capitol Extension. The extension has several public rooms and auditoriums and a massive skylight that provides a beautiful view of the Capitol Dome. The extension also has another purpose as well. It's the place where the building's state workers make their daily rounds to get their walking steps in during lunch. I saw at least 3 groups of women in their walking shoes chatting during a brisk walk around the extension. And that was my tour. Considering the building just came out of a massive multi-$100 million renovation, the building is put together really well. Even though the original building was constructed in 1888 and further expanded in 1890 and 1917, the building fits my 2023 expectations of what a modern day building should look like. Like I said, it even included free Wi-Fi for Capitol guests. After my Wyoming State Capitol building tour, I said my final goodbyes to the city and then headed to Boulder, Colorado to meet up with one of my best friends, but more on that in the next video. And that's that, my tour of Wyoming State Capitol. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in seeing my next tour or any of my future tours, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you'll see those videos pop up in your feed once they're released. Until then, always remember, go out and go travel. You have everywhere to go see.